The world of magic doesn't end with the turning of a page. Love rises and falls anew, forbidden like poison or blazing like a phoenix's flame. The heroes we thought we knew uncover their hearts once more. So step into the enchantment of emotion and welcome to a world where love is written anew. Even long after the war, London had a way of humming at night, a low, magical thrum beneath the fog, as if the city itself were dreaming. Harry Potter often heard it more clearly than he heard his own thoughts. On quiet evenings in his office at the Aura headquarters, when the candles had burned too low and even the portraits were asleep, he could almost imagine the sound was whispering to him, "Rest, Harry, rest." But Harry never did. On this particular night, he stood alone beside the tall windows, staring out at the faint glow of Diagon Alley far below. Reports lay scattered across his desk. Wand malfunctions in the outer wards, frantic letters from small wizarding communities claiming their magic had gone dim, and unsettling accounts of spells behaving as though something were tugging at them from far away. None of it made sense. None of it fit any pattern he knew. And Harry knew patterns. He had learned them the hard way. He rubbed his temples and exhaled slowly. Just one more report, he told himself, the same lie he used every night. A soft knock tapped at the office door. "Come in," Harry called, expecting an intern returning a file. Instead, Head Aura Robards stepped in, cloak slung over one shoulder, looking like he too had given up on sleep. "Potter," Robards said, dropping a thin file onto Harry's desk. "This came in an hour ago. Thought you'd want it immediately." Harry opened it and froze. The report described a magical surge so strong it had collapsed the entire charm structure of a countryside home near Ottery St. Catchpole. No casualties, just confusion, a violently shattered protective charm, and a very frightened muggle neighbour who swore she'd seen the sky fold inward. But it wasn't the surge itself that tightened Harry's chest. It was the small handwritten note clipped at the top. "Property affected belongs to Ronald Weasley. No signs of dark magic detected, but cause unknown." Harry didn't realize he'd sunk into his chair until Robards spoke again, more gently this time. "He's safe. George sent word to the Ministry himself. They're both shaken, but unharmed." Harry shut the file, fingers lingering on the edge. "I'll go see him." Robards nodded as though he'd expected nothing else. The countryside air smelled like damp grass and wood smoke when Harry apparated just outside the wards of the Weasley property. The house wasn't the Burrow. Ron had moved out years ago. But it still carried the warmth of a Weasley home. Crooked chimney, window boxes bursting with flowers, and the faint glow of enchanted lanterns bobbing lazily beneath the eaves. But tonight, the lanterns flickered like they were nervous. Harry stepped forward, adjusting his cloak. The protective charms around the property had clearly collapsed. The air felt thin, like something had scooped the magic out of it. He raised his hand to knock, and the door swung open before he touched it. Ron stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, red hair mussed as though he'd spent hours running his hands through it in frustration. His expression softened the moment he saw Harry. "You didn't have to come all the way out here," Ron said quietly. "I'm fine." Harry took one look at the faint soot marks along Ron's cheek and arched a brow. "You call this fine?" Ron huffed a laugh, the kind he only used when he was trying to hide worry. All right, maybe not fine, but alive. Harry stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The living room was a mess, not from an explosion, but from frantic cleanup. Furniture had been dragged aside, broken charm remnants shimmered faintly on the floor, and George sat on the sofa, wrapping a bandage around his wrist. "Harry," George greeted with an exhausted grin. "Welcome to the grand opening of Weasley Magical Catastrophes. Business is booming." Despite himself, Harry smiled. Some things never changed. "What happened?" Harry asked, turning back to Ron. Ron crossed his arms, muscles tense beneath his shirt. "It wasn't a typical surge. I've seen those. This felt like something pulled on the magic inside the house. Hard." "Pulled?" Harry repeated. Ron nodded. Like the magic itself tried to leap out of the walls. Like it was answering something. Harry exchanged a glance with George, who shrugged helplessly. "No dark magic residue," George said. "I checked twice." Ron added, voice low, "And before you say it, I know what it's like when something dark is brewing. This wasn't that. It felt wrong, but not evil. More like a disruption, a disturbance, a tug, something reaching." Harry felt that same chill he'd felt reading the earlier reports. "You two are coming to the ministry tomorrow," he said firmly. "We need to run diagnostics, examine the site properly. This isn't isolated anymore." Ron hesitated. "Harry, do you think this is connected to the other cases you mentioned? The ones you wouldn't talk about in your letters?" Harry swallowed. He hadn't wanted Ron involved. Not again. Not after they'd finally built separate, safer lives. But now? He met Ron's eyes. Blue, intense, familiar in a way that tugged at something deep inside him. "Yes," Harry said softly. "I think it's all connected." Ron exhaled, shoulders lowering, acceptance settling over him. Then, after a beat, he asked quietly, "You'll be heading the investigation?" "Yes." "And you'll want me on it?" Harry didn't answer. He didn't have to. Something unspoken flickered between them, something they'd both avoided naming for years. Finally, Ron gave a small, crooked smile. "All right then," he said. "Let's figure out what's pulling our magic sideways." And though the night outside was still and quiet, Harry felt the first shift of something stirring. Something that had nothing to do with surges, or artifacts, or dark forces. Something that had been waiting between them for far too long. Morning drifted gently over the Weasley property, pale gold light spreading across the fields like a soft enchantment. The air held that quiet stillness found only in the countryside, a calm so complete that it almost felt protective. But beneath that calm, Harry sensed the lingering tremor of last night's disruption, like a chord still vibrating long after it had been struck. Ron met him outside the house just after sunrise, cloak pulled on hastily, cheeks pink from the cold. He looked tired, but there was an energy in his expression that Harry hadn't seen in years. The look Ron wore when he was already bracing himself for danger, but refusing to turn away from it. "Ready?" Ron asked. "Always," Harry replied, though the word rested heavy on his tongue. Together, they stepped past the threshold where the protective charms once shimmered. Ron paused, eyes narrowing as he studied the faint silver residue still clinging to the air. "It's odd," he murmured. "It should have settled or dissipated by now." Harry crouched, brushing his fingertips along the grass. The soil itself felt wrong, touched by something that didn't belong to nature or magic as he understood it. "The pull," Harry said softly. "It must have been stronger than we thought." Ron didn't answer at first. His gaze drifted toward Harry, not the ground, not the residue. A silent question lingered in his eyes. "Are you all right? Are you carrying this alone again?" Harry stood quickly, brushing off his robes. "We should get to the ministry." Ron nodded, though Harry sensed he wanted to say more. The Ministry of Magic bustled with its usual daytime rhythm. Enchanted memos drifting through the air like restless butterflies, footsteps echoing through the polished halls, and the faint scent of parchment mingling with freshly brewed coffee. But beneath the familiar noise was something else. Unease. Wizards spoke in lowered voices. Aurors hurried from office to office with unusual urgency. Whatever was happening across Britain was growing. Harry led Ron through the security checkpoint, earning a quick nod from the guards. They descended into the lower levels of the Aura department, where the magically reinforced corridors dimmed to a steady torchlight glow. As the lift doors closed behind them, Ron let out a low whistle. "It hasn't changed much," he said. "Still smells like it always did. Metal, ink, and fear." Harry shot him a look. Ron grinned. "I mean that in the best possible way." Harry shook his head, but a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. They stepped out, and the atmosphere shifted immediately. The Aura office was tense, parchment stacked high on every desk, maps pinned to corkboards with coloured markers glowing faintly. Several Auras stood gathered around one of the larger tables, arguing softly over the placement of the newest magical disruption markers. The moment they noticed Harry, silence rippled outward, respectful and expectant. Harry offered them a nod before guiding Ron into an adjoining room, smaller, quieter, sealed with privacy charms. "This is where we're doing the diagnostics," Harry explained. Ron stepped inside and froze. Floating above the central table was a shimmering three-dimensional projection of magical Britain, threads of light weaving through every region. But many of the threads were dimmed. Some were flickering, some nearly severed, and a few burned too brightly, pulsing with unstable energy. "What in Merlin's name?" Ron breathed. "It started a month ago," Harry said, stepping beside him. "Small disturbances at first, wand misfires, charms collapsing, then sudden surges like the one at your home. And every time we examine the site, we find traces of something that feels like a call." Ron shot him a quick look. "A call? Like someone summoning magic itself?" Harry hesitated. "That's our theory. Someone, or something, may be trying to tap into the ambient magic across the country." Ron ran a hand through his hair. "That's not possible. Not without a massive power source, or some kind of artifact." Harry's silence was answer enough. "You think it's an artifact," Ron said slowly. "Don't you?" Harry gave a quiet nod. "A rare one. Ancient. Something designed to resonate with magic, not control it. But if someone repurposed it..." Ron exhaled sharply. "That's how you get surges like the one at my house." Harry stepped closer to the projection, pointing at a cluster of glowing points in northern Scotland. "These locations have shown the strongest activity. We're preparing an investigative team." Ron folded his arms. "And I'm here because..." Harry didn't immediately answer. Instead, he reached for a parchment on the desk and slid it toward Ron. Ron lifted it, and his expression hardened. "It targeted former Order members," he said quietly, scanning the list. "All of them." Harry met his gaze. "It wasn't random. Whoever is behind this is deliberately striking people connected to the war." Ron lowered the parchment. "So, you want me back on the team?" "I need someone I trust." Harry's voice softened. "Someone who knows what these attacks could lead to. Someone who won't panic when things get strange." Ron swallowed, emotions flickering behind his eyes. For a moment, he looked almost younger, the same boy who had once stood beside Harry in battle after battle, terrified but unbreaking. "You trust me that much?" Ron asked quietly. Harry held his gaze. "Always have." The room went still. Something passed between them. Not the unspoken tension of last night, nor the cautious warmth of old friendship. It was something deeper, carved through years of loyalty and loss, something that neither of them had ever dared to name. Ron looked away first, clearing his throat. "Well," he said, voice rougher than before, "I suppose I'm in then." Harry let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Good," he said, softer than intended, "because we leave for Scotland tomorrow." Ron blinked. "Tomorrow? Already?" Harry nodded. "There's been a new disturbance, stronger than the rest, and reports say someone might have been seen there." Ron stiffened. "Someone? A witness?" Harry hesitated. "Not exactly. More like a figure, cloaked, unidentified." Ron's jaw tensed. "We think it's the one behind all this." "Could be," Harry said. "Or someone they've sent." Ron stepped closer to the magical map, studying the northern lights flickering there. "Then we'd better be ready," he murmured. Harry found himself watching Ron instead of the map. The way determination settled over him, the way the dawning sunlight from the enchanted windows softened the sharp lines of his features. That familiar warmth spread through Harry's chest, unsettling in its clarity. Ron turned, catching his gaze. "What?" Harry looked away at once. "Nothing. Just thinking." Ron arched a brow. "Dangerous habit." Harry gave a quiet laugh. And yet, as they prepared to brief the rest of the team, he couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would test not only their skills, but something far more fragile. Something they had both been avoiding for years. For the magic that was being pulled across Britain was powerful, ancient, and unpredictable. But the magic between them might be stronger still. The journey to Scotland began before dawn, when the sky was still a deep, velvety blue, and the ministry's central atrium echoed only with the soft drip of enchanted fountains. The air tasted faintly metallic, as if magic itself had woken early to watch them leave. Harry stood at the portkey platform with a small team of aurors. 3 seasoned witches and wizards equipped with enchanted packs and hardened expressions. Ron lingered at his side, cloak drawn tight, hair damp with early morning mist. Though he tried to look casual, Harry knew him too well. Ron's eyes carried the same determined alertness he used to wear before storming a battlefield. When the portkey flared to life, the familiar jerk pulled them into a whirl of cold wind and twisting light. Moments later, they landed in the rugged expanse of the Scottish Highlands, where dawn broke in streaks of amber and rose over the mountains. The air was thin, sharp, and filled with the scent of heather and distant pine. Ron took a long breath, surveying the sweeping valley below. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "Almost peaceful," Harry agreed. "But don't let it fool you." They moved as a unit through the rocky terrain, boots crunching over frost-laced grass. The area had been reported as the site of the latest magical disturbance, a place so remote that even the ministry's maps had only marked it as uninhabited and magically volatile. But as they descended the slope, it became clear that this was no natural volatility. The ground bore faint scorch marks, not from fire, but from raw magic that had spilled and then been violently sucked back. The air shimmered with echoing threads of unstable enchantment, still buzzing from the force that had passed through it. Ron knelt, dragging his fingertips across the soil. "Same as at my house," he murmured, "but stronger." Harry felt it too, that subtle, unnerving pull, a whisper along his skin, like someone tugging softly at the magic within him. Not enough to harm, but enough to unsettle. "It's moving north," Harry said. "Whatever is causing this isn't stationary. It's drawing magic from locations in a pattern." Ron rose and nodded toward a cluster of trees ahead. "We should check the forest. If anything was here, a person, creature, artifact, they'd have needed cover." The auras spread out, forming a semicircle around Harry and Ron as they entered the shade of the dense woods. Sunlight filtered through branches in fractured beams, illuminating swirls of lingering magical dust. The forest was eerily quiet. No birdsong, no rustle of creatures, as if everything living had fled. Harry tightened his grip on his wand. Then he heard it. A faint hum, low and resonant, pulsing through the ground like a heartbeat. Ron heard it too. "There," he whispered, pointing deeper into the trees. The closer they drew, the stronger the hum became. The air vibrated softly, as though threads of magic twisted restlessly in the space around them. Then, in a small clearing, they found the source. At the center of the clearing lay a fragment of something ancient, a shard of stone no larger than Harry's palm, etched with runes that pulsed faintly with blue-white light. It floated just an inch above the earth, spinning slowly as though guided by an unseen force. Harry's breath caught. "A resonant anchor," he whispered. "It's part of something bigger, something designed to channel magic." Ron stepped carefully around it, keeping his wand raised. "Do you think whoever left this behind is coming back for it?" Harry slowly approached the shard. As he extended his hand, the magic within the stone reacted. The humming grew louder, the runes flashing in warning. "Don't touch it," Ron said quickly, gripping Harry's sleeve. Harry froze. The tension of Ron's hand lingered warmly, grounding him in the moment. "You're right," he said. Together they examined the runes, murmuring spells to identify their origin. The symbols were old, older than Hogwarts, older than the Ministry, carved with a precision that suggested knowledge long forgotten. Finally, Ron whispered, "If this is a piece, where's the rest of it?" The question hung heavy between them. Before Harry could answer, a sudden gust of magic tore through the clearing like a shockwave. Leaves burst upward, branches cracked, and the shard's runes glowed fiercely. The auras staggered back, shielding their faces from the wind. A figure appeared through the swirling magic, tall, cloaked, hood drawn low. They moved with unnatural grace, stepping into the clearing as though emerging from the air itself. Ron inhaled sharply. "That's the one. The figure from the reports." Harry called out, "Stop! Identify yourself!" But the figure didn't answer. Instead, they raised an arm and magic rippled outward like a wave. Harry raised a protective barrier, bracing for impact. The force struck, momentarily blinding, but the barrier held. The figure tilted their heads slightly, as if studying them. And then, with a swirl of dark fabric and twisting light, they vanished. Ron cursed under his breath. They didn't apparate. That wasn't apparition. No, Harry agreed softly. That was something older. One of the auras rushed to the center of the clearing. "Sir, the shard!" They all turned. The stone had cracked, a clean split down the middle, and its light was fading, the runes flickering weakly. The hum had stopped. "Whatever magic it holds is being drained," Harry murmured. "Used." Ron looked around the disturbed clearing, jaw tight. They came to take its power, and they nearly succeeded. Harry crouched beside the stone, watching its dying glow. Something in his chest tightened, a whisper of intuition he couldn't ignore. "If they're gathering the pieces," he said, "then they're building something." Ron crouched beside him. "A weapon? Or a conduit?" Harry said. "Something that manipulates the flow of magic itself." Ron exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the broken shard. "Harry, why target former Order members?" Harry didn't want to say the thought forming in his mind, but Ron saw it in his expression. "Because Order members have strong magical signatures, strong bonds." Harry nodded once, reluctantly. "And if this artifact reacts to bonds?" Harry started. Ron finished for him. "Then someone could be using the connections we forged in the war to power whatever they're building." Harry met Ron's gaze, the realization heavy and chilling between them. "Then we've no choice," Ron said, standing. "We track the other pieces. We find the one gathering them, and we stop this before they drain more magic. From Britain. From us." Harry rose slowly, but his mind lingered on Ron's words. From us. The bond between them had always been strong, unbreakable in ways neither fully understood. And if something was reaching for that bond, using it, he felt the pull again, faint, like a distant whisper of magic brushing against his heart. Ron stepped closer, voice low. "You feel it too, don't you?" Harry nodded, unable to hide it. "Something's stirring, and it wants more than power. It wants connection." Ron laid a steady hand on Harry's arm, warm, grounding. Then it picked the wrong wizards. Harry breathed out slowly, drawing strength from Ron's presence. "Let's move," Harry said. "We're heading farther north. If the figure took anything with them, we'll find traces." Ron gave a resolute nod, but his eyes lingered on Harry for a moment longer than necessary. As they left the clearing behind, stepping back into the forest's dim light, Harry couldn't help but feel that the path ahead would test everything. Their skills, their courage, and the fragile, growing truth neither had dared speak. For the artifact was awakening, and so was something between them. The northern winds grew sharper as the party pressed onward, and by midday the sky had darkened into a vast sheet of pewter grey. Clouds rolled across the mountains like herds of silent beasts, their shadows stretching long and cold over the rugged terrain. Ron pulled his cloak tighter around his shoulders, though Harry noticed that he kept slightly closer than usual, as if unconsciously bracing for whatever might strike next. The path ahead narrowed into a rocky ascent, leading toward a series of jagged cliffs that cut through the highlands like ancient scars. According to the Aura reports, this region had once been home to a forgotten settlement of early wizards, a place steeped in wild magic long before Britain had any understanding of law or control. If the artifact pieces had been scattered intentionally, this would be the perfect place for one to surface. As they climbed, the wind howled between the stones, carrying with it faint whispers. Not words, but impressions. A call that seemed to echo through the very bones of the land. Ron stopped suddenly, head tilted. "There it is again," he murmured. "That pull. You feel it, don't you?" Harry did. It thrummed through the air like a heartbeat muffled by distance. A pulse of magic, not their own, but somehow aware of them. "Stay close," Harry said. Ron gave him a look that carried a hint of amusement despite the tension. "Have I been wandering off? Because I'm fairly certain I've been right next to you for the last 5 miles. Harry fought back a smile. "Just stay closer then." They moved together, their steps falling into the old rhythm they once shared. Unspoken teamwork built through years of battle, friendship, and something deeper that neither had dared examine closely. When they reached the top of the ridge, the view opened into a vast hollow, a bowl-shaped valley carved by ancient magic. The air inside shimmered faintly, bending light into wavering streams. And at the center, nestled between 2 colossal stones, another fragment awaited. It was larger than the previous one, not floating this time, but half buried in the earth like a fallen star. Its runes pulsed with a deep, steady glow, and each pulse sent ripples through the valley, making the air tremble. "Merlin," Ron whispered. "It's stronger than the last. Much stronger." Harry stepped forward cautiously. "Don't get too close. The magic's unstable." But he felt the pull intensify as he approached, a tug that seemed to reach through him rather than toward him. His chest tightened, a strange warmth blooming beneath his ribs. It wasn't painful, but it was unsettling, as if something unseen was testing him, weighing the essence of his magic. Ron reached out instinctively, gripping Harry's arm before he could go any closer. "Harry," he said sharply. "Stop." Harry blinked, the spell broken, and stepped back. The warmth inside him faded. "You all right?" Ron asked. "Yes," Harry said, though his voice held uncertainty. "It just reacted to me differently this time." Ron's brows lowered. "Differently how?" Harry exhaled slowly. It felt like recognition. The auras behind them exchanged uneasy glances, but Ron didn't look away from Harry, not even for a heartbeat. "We need to understand what these pieces are doing," Ron said. "Not just what they're pulling, but why they're responding to you." Harry braced himself. "To us, you mean?" Ron's throat bobbed, the slightest nod confirming the truth they both felt, but hadn't spoken aloud. The artifact was responding not to Harry alone, but to the bond they shared. A bond forged through years of battles fought side by side, through sacrifice, through unspoken devotion. A bond powerful enough to stir ancient magic. Before Harry could say anything more, the air around the fragment roared with sudden energy. A crack split across the stone, bright as lightning. Magic surged outward, ripping through the valley in a spiral of raw force. The auras conjured shields, bracing themselves against a shockwave. Ron grabbed Harry's cloak, pulling him behind one of the towering stones. The world exploded in a rush of white and blue. When the light faded, the valley fell eerily silent. Harry stood slowly, brushing dust from his robes. The fragment lay shattered at their feet, releasing faint tendrils of smoke. The runes were dead, the hum gone. But something else remained. A faint trace of magic drifted upward, swirling into a small suspended sphere of pale light. As it hovered, it trembled, then jerked violently toward the northern horizon, shooting across the sky like a falling star in reverse. Ron shaded his eyes. That didn't look natural. It wasn't, Harry agreed. It was reacting, guiding us, showing us where the next piece is. An aura approached. Commander, should we pursue immediately? Harry considered the question, the crisp mountain air bristling with the aftershock of the artifact's energy. The magic was growing stronger, more unstable, and the mysterious cloaked figure was ahead of them, gathering power faster than they could keep up. We follow it, Harry said, but not blindly. We rest until nightfall, then move at first light. Ron stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're worried. Harry didn't deny it. This isn't just someone seeking power, Ron. This feels personal. They're targeting places tied to the Order, tied to us. Ron studied him, blue eyes steady. Whatever's coming, we face it together. The words were simple, but they landed heavily, stirring a warmth in Harry that had nothing to do with magic. I know, Harry whispered. Ron's expression softened, something unspoken flickering beneath it. Good, he murmured. As the auras set up camp among the sheltered rocks, Harry wandered a few paces away, gazing northward where the streak of light had vanished. The clouds hung low over the mountains, and the wind carried a chill that hinted of oncoming storms. Ron joined him a moment later, hands slipped into his pockets as he watched the same horizon. You think we'll find answers up there? Ron asked. Harry nodded. One way or another. They stood side by side, silent but not distant, the kind of silence that felt natural, easy, woven from years of shared danger and trust. The magic between them pulsed softly, barely perceptible, but unmistakably there. Ron spoke again, his voice quieter. Harry, if this artifact really does respond to bonds, to ours, then there's something we need to understand before this goes any further. Harry turned. What is it? Ron hesitated, a rare moment of vulnerability flickering across his face. It's not just loyalty, he said. Not just destiny or friendship. You know that, don't you? Harry's heart beat once, hard, clear, as the truth he'd long avoided rose between them. Yes, Harry said, the word emerging in a breath. Ron nodded, relief softening his features. Then we start there, he whispered. Not just with the artifact, but with us. Harry's breath caught, not in fear, not in confusion, but in the fragile, staggering realization that the path ahead would test more than magic. It would test their hearts. And even the oldest magic in the world could not match the unknown power of that. Night settled over the highlands like a heavy cloak, dimming the world to muted shapes and silvery outlines. A small fire flickered at the heart of the Aura encampment, its glow pushing back the darkness, but doing nothing to tame the restless wind. Sparks drifted upward and vanished into the deep blue sky, where thin clouds veiled the half-moon. Harry sat a little apart from the others, his back against a cold stone, cloak wrapped tightly around him. The events of the day pressed heavily on his thoughts. The ancient shard, the violent surge, the cloaked figure, the way the magic had responded to him and Ron as if it recognized something inside them. It all spiraled through his mind like tangled spellwork. He closed his eyes, listening to the fire crackle and the distant, mournful cry of a night creature. But it wasn't enough to silence the pulsing echo of the artifact's magic still thrumming faintly inside him. Footsteps approached, slow and steady. "Mind if I join you?" Ron asked, lowering himself to sit beside Harry without waiting for permission. He dropped a small tin cup into Harry's hand. "Tea. Hot. Probably terrible, but hot." Harry smiled, warmth blooming in his chest. "Thanks." Ron settled against the same stone, shoulder brushing Harry's. He stared out over the valley where shadows pooled thick and still. "Never thought I'd miss the noise of London," he muttered. "Out here it's too quiet. Makes you think too much." Harry let the steam curl against his face before taking a sip. The tea was terrible, but somehow comforting all the same. "What are you thinking about?" Ron gave a soft huff. "Everything. The shards, the magic, that cloaked figure, and..." His voice dipped. "You." Harry's breath caught. He stared into the dark, letting Ron continue at his own pace. Ron rubbed his palms together, warming them by the firelight. "Earlier, when that magic reacted to you, it scared me, Harry. Not because you couldn't handle it, but because it felt like something old and powerful had reached inside you, like it wanted to claim a part of you." Harry swallowed slowly. "I felt it too, more strongly than before." Ron turned, eyes glinting with firelight. "It's linked to us, isn't it? To our bond. Whatever this artifact is, it sees that." Harry met his gaze. "Yes, it does." Silence settled between them again, but it was full, electric, like the charged quiet before a storm. Ron exhaled deeply, words tumbling out with the weariness of years. "You know, after the war, I thought distance was safer. For both of us. I thought if we lived separate lives, we might finally have some peace. But it just carved things out instead. Pulled us apart until I wasn't sure what felt real anymore." Harry's fingers tightened around his cup. "I felt it too," he said softly. "Every year that passed." "You never said anything." "You didn't either." Ron let out a low laugh. "We're hopeless." Harry couldn't help but smile. "We always have been." But the smile faded when Ron's shoulders stiffened slightly. "Harry, if this artifact is feeding on bonds or trying to manipulate them, then we need to understand exactly what we are, what we've been avoiding." Harry stared at the fire. The truth sat just beneath his ribs, aching. He'd kept it buried for too long, convinced it was safer not to name it. Safer to pretend their connection was merely history, merely loyalty, merely friendship. But nothing in his life had ever been merely Ron. He drew a breath, steady but quiet. "I think we've known for a long time," Harry murmured. "We just never let ourselves look too closely." Ron's hand brushed his. Not accidental, not hesitant, but deliberate. A simple touch, yet it sent a slow, grounding warmth through Harry that had nothing to do with magic. "It's all right," Ron said softly. "You don't have to explain it. I already know." Harry turned, surprised. "You do?" Ron smiled, tired, gentle. "Of course. I've known for years. I just didn't know if it was the same for you." Harry laughed under his breath, a quiet, incredulous sound. "It is." The wind rushed past them then, cold and sharp, scattering the fire's embers. But Harry barely felt it. Ron's hand remained against his, steady and sure, a silent promise. For the first time in years, the tension between them eased, not vanishing, but settling into something real, acknowledged. But the moment didn't last. A sudden crack echoed through the valley, not from the forest, not from an animal, but from magic splitting the air like a blade. Harry and Ron leapt to their feet instantly, wands drawn. The auras around the camp scrambled into defensive formations. The sound came again, a low, resonant rumble, as if the earth itself was stirring. Ron stepped in front of Harry instinctively, back pressed to his. Harry felt Ron's presence like a steady heartbeat behind him, grounding him in the rising chaos. The air shimmered above the campsite. Lines of faint light twisted together, forming a web of flickering runes that spiraled through the sky. Then, with a sharp sing-song crack, the runes dissolved, collapsing into a falling shower of blue sparks. One of the auras shouted, "Incoming magic surge!" Harry braced himself, shield charm ready, but no blast came. Instead, a cold voice drifted across the wind. "You cannot outrun what is yours." The night deepened, shadows thickened, and a figure stepped onto a ridge overlooking the camp. The same cloaked silhouette they had seen earlier. The figure's presence warped the air around them, distorting the fire's light until their features were nearly impossible to distinguish. They raised a hand, and the remaining sparks of blue magic skittered toward them like obedient fireflies. Ron muttered, "Brilliant, just brilliant." Harry stepped forward, wand held steady. "Who are you? And what do you want with these artifacts?" The figure tilted their head, voice slipping through the darkness like a whisper wrapped in frost. "Not artifacts, fragments of power, echoes of the first weaving." Harry felt a chill. "And what do you want with them?" The figure's hood lowered slightly, revealing the faint outline of pale skin and a mouth curved in a knowing smile. "I seek what you hold," they said. "What has always bound wizards beyond their understanding?" Ron stiffened. "Bound? You mean magical bonds?" The figure laughed, a soft, eerie sound. "Not just magic. Hearts, choices, devotion strong enough to shape fate itself." Harry felt Ron tense beside him, felt the unspoken meaning settle heavily between them. The figure's voice softened, nearly gentle. "You feel it, don't you? The pull, the ancient call. It knows what lies between you." Harry's heart pounded. Ron stepped forward, voice steady but sharp. "Whatever you think you know, you're wrong." "Am I?" the figure whispered. The valley wind died. The world held its breath. And then, with a flick of their hand, a shockwave of magic burst outward, slamming into the camp. The ground cracked, the fire extinguished, and the ancient stones around them trembled with force. Harry staggered, but didn't fall. Ron grabbed his arm, holding him upright. When the light faded, the figure was gone, leaving behind only a faint echo of their words. "What binds you cannot be hidden." Harry looked at Ron, breath unsteady. Ron looked back, jaw tight, eyes fierce. "This just got personal," Ron said. Harry nodded slowly. "Yes," he whispered. "It did." And the wind carried the truth between them, not a threat, but a promise. Whatever the artifact wanted, whatever ancient force sought to twist their bond, they would face it together, no matter the cost. Dawn broke slowly over the shattered stones of the encampment, staining the sky with pale streaks of gold and rose. The wind had quieted, leaving behind an eerie stillness that lingered over the valley like a warning. The auras moved silently through the wreckage of the previous night's blast, repairing tents, restoring protective wards, and examining the deep fractures cut into the earth. Harry stood at the edge of the camp, staring toward the ridge where the cloaked figure had vanished. The memory of their voice still clung to the air, soft, knowing, too close to truths he had tried for years to bury. He felt the lingering tremor of their magic, a chilling reminder that the enemy was not only powerful, but intimately aware of the ancient force that bound him to Ron. Ron approached, brushing dust from his cloak. His face was pale in the morning light, freckles standing out like shards of ember, but his eyes carried a fierce steadiness that steadied Harry in turn. "How bad is the damage?" Harry asked quietly. Ron looked back at the camp. "Could have been worse. They weren't trying to kill us, just rattle us, send a message." Harry nodded. They succeeded. Ron's shoulder brushed his, deliberate, grounding. "Then we send a message back." Harry breathed deeply, letting the cold air fill his lungs. The bond between them hummed faintly, subtle but unmistakable, like a thread weaving their magic together. It felt stronger now, after the night's upheaval, as if danger had stripped away the last layers of hesitation between them. "We need to move north," Harry said at last. "Whatever fragments remain, that's where they'll be." The figure guided the last surge like a beacon. Ron crossed his arms. "They want us to follow." "Yes, and we're going anyway." Harry met his gaze. "We don't have a choice." Ron gave a sharp nod. "Good. Thought you'd say something sensible for once." Harry allowed himself a small smile. "Occasionally, I surprise even myself." Ron groaned theatrically. "Just don't get used to it." The faint humor eased the tension that had tightened Harry's chest all morning. But when they turned toward the mountain path leading north, the air shifted, like the land itself was bracing for their approach. The trails grew steeper, winding between crags shaped by centuries of wild magic. Strange patterns were etched into the cliffs, curved sigils and runic paths, some faded, some still glowing with stubborn life. Harry paused by one, running his fingertips over its carved edges. "Ancient druidic," Ron murmured behind him. "The really old kind, before wandcraft." Harry nodded. This place was woven with magic long before Hogwarts existed. Ron stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You think the fragments came from here?" "Maybe." Harry touched the stone again, and the rune pulsed faintly beneath his fingers. "Or something was buried here once, something powerful." They continued upward, the air growing thinner, colder. Frost clung to the rocks despite the rising sun, and Harry felt a faint vibration underfoot, as though magic was running deep beneath the mountain like a pulse. Then, without warning, the bond between him and Ron twitched, like a string pulled taut. Ron stopped instantly. "You felt that." Harry looked down the shadowed slope ahead. "Something's close." The path led them into a narrow ravine, where jagged walls of stone rose on either side. The air thrummed with a low vibration, and faint wisps of bluish energy curled like smoke between the rocks. There was no wind here, no sound, only the soft glow of magic that clung to the air like mist. They moved carefully, wands ready. Halfway through the ravine, Ron halted. "Harry," he whispered, nodding toward the ground. A faint symbol had been carved into the rock, 3 interlocking circles glowing softly. The same symbol had appeared in the shattered artifact fragments. "This marks a convergence point," Harry murmured. "A place where magic gathers naturally." Ron let out a slow breath. "Then we're walking right into the heart of it." "Yes," Harry said. "Exactly where they want us." Before Ron could respond, the air rippled with sudden force. A deep hum filled the ravine, growing, rising, until it felt like the air itself was vibrating. Loose stones clattered across the ground. Dust cascaded from the cliffs overhead. Harry raised his wand. "Stand back!" But the warning came too late. A wave of raw magic burst outward from the center of the ravine, slamming into them with the force of a gale. Harry's shield snapped into place, but the impact drove him backward across the stone. Ron grabbed him, anchoring him as the air flashed with violent light. When the surge faded, a new shape hovered before them. A fragment, larger than the others, spun slowly above the ground, its runes burning bright gold. But unlike the previous pieces, this one crackled with unstable energy, its glow pulsing erratically as if the magic contained inside it was straining to break free. Ron took a step forward. "It's reacting to us again." Harry felt it, deep inside his chest, a tremor that spread through his magic like a ripple. The artifact was pulling at him, at Ron, at the bond between them. "It's drawing power from us," Harry whispered. "From our connection." Ron clenched his jaw. "Then we break that connection." Harry shook his head. "No, that would only destabilize it more." Ron turned sharply, eyes glinting. "Then what, Harry? Let it drain us?" "No," Harry said. "We control it. Together." Ron stared at him for a long moment, then nodded once. "All right. Together." They stepped forward at the same time. The fragment flared, its light brightening until it filled the ravine. Runes spiraled across its surface, shifting, reconfiguring with each pulse of their combined magic. Harry felt Ron beside him, felt his presence steady and sure, magic woven into the air like a warm thread. Their bond strengthened, responding to the artifact's pull, not weakening but solidifying, anchoring itself deeper into the ancient magic swirling around them. Ron whispered, "I've got you." Harry breathed, "I know." The fragment cracked, once, twice, until the light burst outward in a brilliant flash. Harry shielded his eyes, Ron's hand gripping his arm. When the light faded, the fragment lay in two broken halves at their feet. But something new remained. Hovering above the shattered stone was a small, crystalline shard, clear as glass, humming softly with energy. It pulsed in time with the bond between them. Ron exhaled. "What in Merlin's name is that?" Harry stepped closer, heart pounding. "A core piece," he murmured. "The heart of the artifact." Ron frowned. "But why did it appear now? From this piece?" Harry looked at him, the truth settling cold and heavy in his chest. "Because this fragment wasn't just connected to ancient magic," he said quietly. "It was connected to us." The wind swept through the ravine, carrying the echo of a distant voice. "What binds you cannot be hidden." Ron's expression hardened. "They're watching us. They're waiting." Harry nodded slowly. "And they're using our bond to awaken the artifact." Ron stepped beside Harry, close enough that their shoulders brushed. "Then we stay ahead of them," Ron said. "No more hesitation. No more pretending we don't know what this is." Harry swallowed. "Ron." Ron met his gaze, eyes steady and resolute. "No matter what the artifact wants, no matter what ancient magic is at play, we're stronger together. That's the truth, and we don't run from truth." Harry felt warmth rise in his chest. Not fear, not uncertainty, but something fierce and steady. Together, Harry agreed. They reached for the crystalline shard at the same moment. Its light flared, bright, blinding. And far to the north, something ancient stirred in answer. The world snapped back into focus with a rush of cold air and the echo of distant thunder. The crystalline shard hovered between Harry and Ron, spinning slowly as threads of pale light wound outward from its surface. Each thread shimmered like a strand of spider silk, drifting toward the northern horizon before dissolving into the wind. Ron watched the threads fade with narrowed eyes. It's pointing again, same direction as before. Whatever this thing is, it wants us to follow. Harry nodded, his heartbeat still settling from the burst of magic. It's guiding us to the center of the disturbance, the core, the source. Ron tilted his head. Think it's a trap? Almost certainly, Harry said. Ron sighed. Good. I was worried this would be too easy. Despite everything, the cold, the exhaustion, the weight of fate creeping around them, Harry felt a flicker of warmth. Ron always managed to break tension with humor, even at the doorstep of danger. It grounded Harry more than he'd ever admitted. The shard chimed softly, its glow intensifying. Ron carefully extended his hand. Reckon it wants us to take it. Harry raised a hand. Wait. If it's connected to our bond, then it might react strongly. Maybe too strongly. Ron didn't withdraw. We handle it together. Same as before. Harry hesitated only a heartbeat before placing his hand beside Ron's. Their fingers brushed, warm, steady, and the shard pulsed at the contact. Its glow spread across their palms, neither burning nor cold, just familiar. The feeling washed through Harry like a warm current, comforting, powerful, frightening in its clarity. It wasn't simply magic. It wasn't simply the artifact. It was the bond between him and Ron, responding with an honesty Harry had never allowed himself to face fully. Ron drew a slow breath. Feels like it recognizes us. Harry nodded. Like it's waking. As they lifted the shard, a soft hum rippled outward, rolling through the ravine like a whispered chant. The runes along the shattered stone fragments flickered briefly, then went dark. We need to get back to the camp, Harry said. We'll examine this properly before it decides to explode or drag us halfway across the country. Comforting thought, Ron muttered, pocketing the shard carefully. Really eases the nerves. As they turned to leave, the ground beneath them trembled, just slightly, just enough to suggest that something deep within the mountains had shifted. Harry paused, glancing back at the ruined fragment. A faint, lingering glow pulsed once, then faded. He felt it again, a tug, faint but undeniable, pulling at his magic, at Ron's, at the connection between them. It whispered through the air like a warning. Ron noticed it too. That feeling again. Harry exhaled. Stronger this time. Ron's jaw tightened. Then we're running out of time. They made their way back down the winding trail, moving quickly but cautiously. The highland wind swept through the cliffs, carrying with it a scent of frost and wild heather. The world around them felt charged, as if the land itself were holding its breath. When they reached the encampment, the auras looked up expectantly. One stepped forward. Commander, did you recover anything? Ron drew the shard from his cloak. Its glow illuminated his hand, casting soft blue light across the campsite. A collective murmur rippled through the auras. Harry raised a hand for silence. This shard appears to be a core of the artifact, likely the most important piece we've found so far. It reacts to magical bonds, especially strong ones. Ron shot him a quick look, as if expecting him to say more. Harry didn't. Not yet. One of the auras stepped closer. If it reacts to bonds, does that mean it's dangerous to carry? Harry nodded. Potentially. That's why Ron and I will keep it. It's already connected to us. Ron added, and we're the ones it's pulling toward. The auras exchanged uneasy glances, but didn't argue. As the team began preparing to break camp, Harry and Ron moved toward the far edge of the encampment to speak privately. Ron set the shard gently on a flat stone. Its glow softened, casting shifting patterns across their faces. Harry folded his arms. Every piece we find reacts faster, stronger. Someone, or something, is pushing this artifact toward awakening. Ron nodded. And they're using us as the catalyst. Harry didn't want to say the next part, but he forced himself to. Our bond is accelerating the process. Ron didn't flinch. Then we adapt. We use it before they do. Harry blinked. You're not afraid. Ron shrugged lightly. I am. Terrified, actually. But being afraid never stopped us before. Harry felt his chest tighten with something like gratitude. Something like more. Ron stepped closer. Look, Harry, this thing is drawn to what's between us. Fine. Then we don't run from it. We use it, together. Whatever that means now. Harry met his gaze. The sincerity there was almost overwhelming. I trust you, Harry said softly. Ron smiled. Small, genuine. Good, because I'm not letting you do this alone. Harry swallowed, the warmth in his throat difficult to ignore. Ron, last night, before the attack, when we talked, Ron's expression softened. Yeah? Harry's breath misted in the cold air. I meant what I said. All of it. Ron stepped even closer, close enough that Harry could feel his warmth through the cold Highland wind. So did I. A brief, fragile moment settled between them. Quiet, unguarded, humming with something new and unspoken, yet deeply familiar. The world seemed to hold its breath around them. Then the shard pulsed sharply. Harry stiffened. It's reacting again. Ron turned instantly. Why? We're not even touching it. The shard lifted, hovering a few inches above the stone. Its glow intensified until the camp was bathed in blue-white light. Harry's wand was in his hand in an instant. Back away slowly. But the shard pulsed again, faster, faster, until the light surged upward in a spiraling column, piercing the sky. The earth trembled. The wind roared. And from the clouds above, a distant, haunting echo drifted through the air. The heart is the key. Ron grabbed Harry's shoulder. They're pushing it farther. Whoever's behind this is controlling the shard. Harry's eyes widened, all responding to it. The column of light bent, angled sharply north, pointing like a beacon. Then the shard dropped into Ron's hand, solid and silent once more. Harry steadied himself. That's our direction. Ron closed his fingers around the shard, his jaw set with fierce determination. Then what are we waiting for? Harry looked north, where the sky had begun to darken despite the rising sun. Something ancient is waking, he said, and it's calling us. Ron stepped beside him. Then let it call. We'll answer together. Harry nodded slowly. Together they turned toward the looming mountains, ready to step into the unknown. Not as brothers in arms, not as childhood friends, but as something deeper, bound by magic older than the land itself. and finally acknowledged. The ascent northward took them into harsher lands, where the mountains rose like jagged sentinels, their peaks lost in coils of drifting mist. The auras followed at a distance, leaving Harry and Ron to walk slightly ahead, as though the very path itself recognized whom it had been carved for. The shard in Ron's pocket pulsed gently, guiding them with a rhythm that matched Harry's heartbeat, far too closely for comfort. By midday, the crisp air had grown colder, sharpened by a wind that carried the scent of ancient magic. Snow flurries swept across the ridges in brief, swirling breaths. Each flake glittered faintly before melting on their cloaks, as though imbued with traces of the artifact's energy. Ron exhaled a misty breath. "Feels like the mountains are watching us." Harry nodded. "They probably are. These slopes were shaped by centuries of spellcraft. Wild magic lives here." Ron snorted softly. "Brilliant. And all we've got is a crystal that hums like a cursed singing teapot." Harry shot him a sideways glance, smiling despite the tension. "You always did know how to inspire confidence." Ron shrugged. "Someone has to keep morale up. You're too busy brooding." Harry rolled his eyes, but the humor steadied him. Ron had always been his anchor, through the darkest hours of the war, through the quieter years that followed, even in the spaces between words where unspoken truths had lingered for too long. As they crossed a narrow ridge, the shard pulsed again, once, twice, stronger this time, sending a faint thrill through Harry's magic. Ron pressed a hand over his pocket, wincing. "It's vibrating like mad." Harry stopped. "Then we're close." The path widened ahead, opening onto a plateau marked by a circle of ancient stones. Some were toppled, others half buried in snow, but a few still stood tall and solemn, their surfaces etched with runes so old they seemed woven from the mountain itself. Harry stepped forward, breath catching. Druidic, and not just ceremonial. These were channels, conduits for storing and weaving magic. Ron walked beside him, scanning the stone circle. The air's buzzing. "Same feeling I got before the shard lit up." Harry nodded slowly. "Somewhere within this circle, there must be another fragment." Ron frowned. "You think it's buried?" "Possibly." Ron glanced around. "Or maybe it's already awake." Before Harry could respond, the wind shifted, suddenly, sharply, as though inhaled by something vast and unseen. The snow swirling around the stones froze mid-air, suspended for an instant in ghostly stillness. Ron stiffened. "That's not natural." "No," Harry murmured. "It isn't." A deep hum rose from the ground, vibrating through the soles of their boots. The auras behind them conjured protective barriers instinctively, though none dared move closer. Then, at the center of the stone circle, the snow began to melt. Not from heat, but from magic. A faint blue glow seeped upward, like light bleeding through the earth. The hum grew louder, rising into a resonant chant that echoed through the mountains. Ron's hand brushed Harry's. "Ready?" he whispered. Harry's fingers curled back around his without hesitation. "Always." The ground split open. Not violently, not like a crack, but like a curtain gently parting. A pillar of pale light rose from the opening, swirling with runes that twisted into shapes Harry recognized from the previous fragments. From within the pillar, a second shard emerged, larger, its edges sharp like crystal blades. It hovered, pulsing in time with the one Ron carried. Harry stepped forward. This is another core piece. Ron didn't move. His expression had gone tight, focused. Do you feel that? Harry did. The new shard wasn't simply reacting to their magic. It was calling to it, pulling at the bond between him and Ron with startling strength, as if testing its threads, weighing their resilience. It's stronger than before, Harry murmured. Ron took a breath. Harry, be careful. But Harry was already stepping closer. Light flared, blinding, brilliant. The shard's glow intensified until it filled the entire circle, bathing the stones in radiant blue. Harry raised his wand, forming a shield around himself and Ron as the magic surged. The two shards resonated, their pulses aligning, slower then faster, until they matched the rhythm of Harry's and Ron's heartbeats perfectly. Ron's voice trembled with awe. It's sinking with us. Harry's chest tightened. It's binding us to it. The second shard drifted toward them, its runes shifting like living script. Harry braced himself for impact, but instead, the shard halted inches away, suspended in the air as though waiting. Ron swallowed hard. It wants us to take it, both of us. Harry nodded. At the same time. They each reached forward, Ron with his left hand, Harry with his right. And the moment both sets of fingers brushed the shard, the world erupted in light. Magic roared around them, spiraling upward like a cyclone. The stones trembled, the mountains groaned. Harry felt his magic entwine with Ron's, not merging, but aligning, strengthening, like two beams forming a single pillar. His breath hitched, and he felt Ron's grip tighten, steadying him. The shard melted into warmth, pure, radiant, flowing into their joined hands. Then the vision came. Not a memory, not a dream, a glimpse. A vast hall of ancient stone, carved with runes that pulsed in rhythmic patterns. At the center, a great altar held a sphere of light, brighter than any spell Harry had ever seen. Surrounding it stood robed figures, their faces hidden, their magic weaving outward in shimmering threads that connected them all. A voice whispered, not in words, but in feeling. Unity, devotion, power drawn from the bonds we forge. Then the vision shattered. Harry gasped, staggering. Ron caught him, arms strong around his waist. Harry, are you all right? Harry steadied himself, nodding shakily. I saw the original artifact, where it was forged. A hall, deep underground. Ron's eyes widened. And the figures? They were using their connections, magical, emotional, to weave power. The artifact was created to amplify bonds. Ron exhaled. Then someone's trying to rebuild it. Harry nodded grimly. Yes, and we're a key part of that plan. The new shard floated gently into Ron's hand, settling beside the first. Together, the two pieces hummed in perfect harmony. Harry looked north. The mountains loomed even higher there, their peaks swallowed by thick, roiling clouds. That hall, Harry said quietly. It's north of here, deep underground. Ron closed his fingers around the shards, his voice steady. Then we go find it. Harry turned to him, heart pounding, not from fear, but from the undeniable truth that had followed them with every step north. Ron, he said softly, whatever we're walking into, our bond is the reason we're still standing. Ron didn't look away. I know, Harry swallowed, and it's more than magic. Ron stepped closer, close enough that Harry felt the warmth of him through the icy wind. I know that too. The mountains rumbled in the distance. ominous, ancient. But Harry no longer felt the cold. He felt Ron. He felt the truth between them, strong, steady, unavoidable. And he felt the call of something waiting in the depths of the earth. Together, they turned toward the northern peaks. The next step would take them into the heart of the oldest magic in Britain, and into the final test of the bond they had carried for a lifetime. The climb into the northernmost peaks was harsher than any they had faced before. The mountains rose like colossal guardians carved from ice and ancient stone, their ridges serrated, their valleys deep and shadowed. The air grew thinner, cutting into their lungs with every breath, and the wind howled like a restless spirit weaving between the cliffs. By midday, the snow had thickened into sweeping veils that blurred the world into white and grey. The auras struggled behind them, but Harry and Ron pressed onward with determined steps, guided by the two crystalline shards humming beneath Ron's cloak. Ron wiped snow from his eyebrows, muttering through chattering teeth. Whoever built this artifact couldn't have put it somewhere warm, could they? Caribbean, maybe? A nice, friendly beach? Harry managed a small smile. Ancient druids didn't care much for beaches. Well, Ron grumbled, tightening his scarf, they should have. Despite the humor, Harry could hear the fatigue beneath Ron's voice. They had been climbing since dawn, and the mountains were growing more treacherous. Narrow ledges, icy slopes, and deep ravines hidden beneath blankets of snow. But the shards pulsed steadily, their glow seeping through Ron's cloak like faint starlight. Each pulse tugged gently northward, leading them towards something buried deep within the frozen wilderness. A force older than their world, a force awakening. Harry paused beside a ridge, scanning the horizon. The clouds had thickened to a swirling bruise of black and violet. Unnatural colors that shimmered like spellwork twisted into the sky. Ron joined him, breath misting in the frigid air. Looks like trouble. Harry nodded slowly. Magic's gathering. Whatever's ahead, we're close. Ron stared into the storm. Too close? Harry's fingers brushed Ron's glove. Just a moment. Just enough to ground himself. We'll face it together. Ron's eyes softened, even in the biting cold. Always. They moved on, descending a steep slope that led into a basin surrounded by towering cliffs. The snow here lay untouched, pristine and eerily still, as though no creature had crossed this valley for centuries. At the center stood an arch of black stone, half buried in drifts, but unmistakably carved by ancient hands. Runes spiraled along its surface, glowing faintly with a deep, pulse-like rhythm. Ron stopped dead. Harry. That's... Harry nodded. An entrance. Ron swallowed. To the hall you saw in the vision. Harry's scar prickled faintly, not with dark magic, but with something older, something vast. He approached the arch slowly, raising a hand to trace one of the runes. It pulsed at his touch, bright, steady. The ground trembled. Snow slid from the arch in soft cascades. The runes blazed like molten fire, and from the heart of the stone, a doorway opened, dark and deep, spiraling downward in a shifting tunnel of ancient magic. Ron let out a low whistle. Well, that's inviting. Harry stepped closer, wand raised. The cold wind rushed past them like a warning. Ron caught Harry's arm. Before we go down there, you have that look. Harry blinked. What look? The one that means you're about to do something heroic and stupid. Harry huffed out a breath. Ron, Ron moved closer, eyes steady and warm even in the bitter cold. Whatever's down there, we face it side by side. No running off, no sacrifices, no saving me while you fall into the abyss. Harry felt his throat tighten. I'm not planning on. Ron raised a brow. Harry, come on, it's us. Harry opened his mouth, closed it again, and then nodded quietly. All right, together. Satisfied, Ron drew the shards from his cloak. Their glow brightened instantly, swirling in spiraling tendrils that pointed toward the dark passage below. Harry felt the pull again, stronger, deeper, unmistakable. The bond between him and Ron thrummed in his chest like a heartbeat shared between two wands, drawing power from the same core. They stepped through the arch. The world shifted. Cold air vanished, replaced by warmth. A deep, ancient warmth that smelled faintly of moss, stone, and old spellfire. The walls around them glowed with soft green light, runes etched in spiraling patterns that wound deeper into the earth. It's like, Ron whispered, like the walls themselves are alive. Harry nodded. Magic lives here. Old magic. Their footsteps echoed softly as they descended the spiraling tunnel, the glow brightening with each step. The deeper they went, the stronger the shards hummed, until the vibration filled the air like a low, resonant chant. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. Harry drew in a sharp breath. This was the hall from his vision. The ceiling soared high above, lost in shadows. Pillars of glowing stone lined the chamber, each carved with runes that pulsed in rhythmic patterns. And at the center stood a colossal pedestal, an altar of shimmering marble, veins of gold running through it like sunlight captured in stone. Hovering above the altar was a sphere of light, soft, pale, shifting like fog and moonlight entwined. Ron exhaled. That's it, the heart of the artifact. Harry stepped forward cautiously. The sphere pulsed gently, matching the rhythm of the shards Ron held. Ron whispered, "It's waiting for us." Harry turned to him. "Not just us. It's waiting for our bond." Ron hesitated, eyes flickering with something fragile and fierce. "Harry, we've been dancing around this for years, and now the artifact is literally using our feelings to power itself." Harry's heart stuttered. "Ron," Ron's voice softened. "Before we touch that thing, I need to say it plainly. No war at our heels, no danger clouding everything, just truth." Harry's breath caught. Ron stepped closer, his voice quiet but unwavering. "I love you. I think I have for a long time. And I know things are complicated. Life's complicated. But if this artifact is reacting to us, it's because of what's real. What's been real for years." Harry felt the world steady around him. Not spinning, not breaking, just aligning with a clarity he'd never dared hope for. He reached out, cupping the back of Ron's gloved hand. "I love you too," Harry whispered. "More than I ever let myself admit." Ron swallowed hard. "So, whatever happens next?" Harry nodded. "We meet it together." Ron held up the two shards. Their glow intensified, bright, blinding, beautiful. "Ready?" Ron asked. Harry stepped close enough that their shoulders touched. "Always." They lifted the shards toward the sphere. Light erupted. Brilliant, resonant, earth-shaking. The chamber hummed like a living heart. Stone trembled. Runes flared. Magic curled around them in spiraling tendrils, tasting their bond, testing it, weaving it into the ancient spell that filled the hall. The shards dissolved into pure energy. The sphere expanded. and the chamber exploded with light as the artifact awakened. Light swallowed everything. It burst from the heart of the chamber in a tidal wave of brilliance, warm, pulsing, alive. Harry's eyes clenched shut against the intensity. The floor shuddered beneath their feet, pillars groaning as magic older than Hogwarts itself surged through the underground hall. Harry felt Ron's hand tighten around his, felt their magic entwine like two currents joining into a single stream. The power rushing through them was overwhelming, yet not hostile, not destructive. It felt, instead, like the magic was seeing them, searching them, measuring the strength of what bound them. The air rang like a struck bell. The runes along the walls brightened, flaring gold and emerald. The pedestal beneath the sphere glowed with molten light, and the sphere itself expanded outward into a dome of shimmering silver mist. When the brilliance finally dimmed enough to see, Harry opened his eyes. The chamber had changed. Arcane symbols now floated in the air like drifting constellations. The pillars blazed with inner fire, their runes forming new patterns, patterns Harry recognized from ancient texts describing the earliest magical gatherings. And at the center of the hall stood the sphere of light, but no longer vague, no longer a cloud. It had solidified into a perfect crystal orb. Inside it, faint threads of magic twisted and glowed, threads that pulsed in time with Harry's heartbeat. Ron let out a shaky breath. Bloody hell! Harry swallowed, stepping closer. It's awakened, fully. Ron nodded, still gripping Harry's hand as though letting go would unravel something vital. And it feels aware. The orb's magic brushed against them, a soft, inquisitive touch. The sensation wasn't frightening. It was like a whisper, ancient and curious, brushing through their bond before retreating. "It's not attacking," Ron murmured. "It's waiting." Harry nodded. Because this artifact wasn't built to harm. It was built to amplify, to draw on human bonds and turn them into incredible magical strength. Ron frowned. So why the attacks? Why the surges? Why the cloaked figure? Harry held his breath, the truth clicking into place. Because someone's trying to control it, not use it the way it was meant to be used. Ron's eyes narrowed. And whoever that is, wants to use us to do it. Before Harry could answer, a cold wind sliced through the chamber. The torches flickered, shadows twisted. The cloaked figure appeared at the edge of the hall. Their robes billowed as though carried by a wind no one else felt, and their presence darkened the chamber despite the vibrant glow of the awakened artifact. The shadows around them rippled unnaturally, clinging to their silhouette. Ron stepped forward, wand raised. "You again." The figure's voice echoed like distant thunder, soft yet resonant. "You have done well. Better than I expected." Harry stiffened. "You've been manipulating the shards, guiding us here." "Yes." The figure tilted their head, hood still concealing their features. "You were needed. The artifact cannot awaken without a bond strong enough to withstand its call." Ron bristled. "We're not tools for you to use." The figure laughed softly. "You misunderstand. I have no desire to use you. I merely require what you hold between you." Harry's wand tightened in his grip. "Our bond." "Your devotion," the figure corrected. "Your loyalty, your love. It radiates through magic stronger than most ancient spells. The artifact resonates with such threads, and now it has awakened because of you." Harry's pulse hammered. Why? What do you want with it? The figure stepped forward. The shadows peeled away from the stone behind them as though recoiling. The artifact was created to weave magic between hearts, uniting communities, strengthening ties, preventing destruction. But the world has forgotten such magic. Bonds decay, alliances crumble, wizards isolate themselves behind walls of fear. Ron scoffed. And blasting half of Britain's wards is how you fix that? The figure's voice sharpened. Disturbances were necessary, a ripple to stir stagnation, but the true purpose is restoration. Harry lowered his wand slightly, not in surrender, but in dawning comprehension. You want to force a return to ancient unity. Yes, the figure whispered. A unity woven by the artifact's full power. Once restored, it can bind the magical world together, ending centuries of division. Ron's face paled. Binding. You mean controlling, forcing connections that don't belong. The figure didn't deny it. Harry stepped forward. Magic doesn't work that way. Bonds can't be created, only chosen. The figure's hood shifted toward him. And yet yours was chosen long ago, stronger than blood, stronger than destiny. A bond forged through survival, sacrifice and affection so deep it rivals ancient enchantments. Harry's breath caught. Ron's fingers found his again, steadying him. We didn't come here to become part of your plan. The figure lifted a hand. The whole chamber responded. Runic light twisting into a vortex around them, the orb flaring with blinding brilliance. I do not need your permission, the figure murmured. I simply need your bond. Magic exploded outward. Ron shoved Harry aside as a shockwave tore across the floor, splitting stone and toppling smaller pillars. Spells clashed in blinding cascades of light as auras rushed into the hall behind them, shouting, firing defensive barriers. Harry dodged another blast, deflecting it with a sweep of his wand. Ron fired a stunner, which the figure dispersed with barely a twitch. Stone cracked overhead. Dust rained down. The orb's glow intensified, flickering erratically as the figure attempted to seize its power. Harry! Ron shouted, blocking another blast with a shield charm that cracked under the force. The artifact, if they take it. I know. Harry sprinted toward the orb, but the moment he neared it, magic surged violently, throwing him backward. Ron caught him before he hit the stone. The figure's voice echoed over the chaos. The orb answers only to true unity, only to unbroken devotion. Harry gasped, staring at Ron. Ron stared back, eyes wide with the same realization. Harry, Ron whispered, it won't respond unless we do it together. Harry nodded, gripping Ron's hand tightly. Then, together. They stepped forward as one. Magic flared around them, not repelling, but drawing them in. Their joined magic resonated in the air like twin notes, harmonizing into a single, powerful chord. The figure froze, sensing the shift. No, the figure hissed. You cannot control it. You are not meant to. But their voice drowned beneath the rising pulse of the orb. Harry squeezed Ron's hand. Ron squeezed back. And together, they reached toward the heart of the ancient artifact. Just as the figure lunged, shouting a spell that cracked the air like lightning. Light erupted. Stone shattered. Magic roared. And the chamber exploded in a storm of blinding radiance as all three forces collided. When the light died, it did not fade gently. It collapsed inward like a star imploding, dragging every sound, every breath, every scrap of magic into a single shuddering silence. Harry hit the stone floor hard enough to drive the air from his lungs. Dust clouded his vision. The chamber rang with the echo of the blast, a hollow metallic hum that felt as if it reverberated inside his bones. Somewhere nearby, stone crumbled and skittered across the ground. His first thought was not of the artifact, not of the cloaked figure, not of the cavern threatening to collapse around them. His first thought was Ron. Ron! Harry scrambled upright, blinking through the haze. Ron! A groan answered him from a few paces away. Ron pushed himself onto his elbows, hair plastered to his forehead with sweat, his cloak singed at the edges. His wand lay a foot from his outstretched hand. Despite the chaos, his eyes found Harry instantly. "You all right?" Ron rasped. Harry exhaled shakily, the world snapping back into shape. "Am I all right? I'm not the one who flew 20 feet into a pillar." Ron coughed out a laugh. "Trust me, I noticed." Harry crawled to him, hands skimming over Ron's shoulders, arms, ribs, checking for breaks, burns, curse wounds. Ron winced, but didn't pull away. His gaze softened, warm even in the flickering, unstable light of the hall. "I'm fine, Harry," he murmured. "I am. Really." Harry swallowed hard. "You scared me." Ron's hand came up, brushing Harry's cheek in a rare, instinctive gesture, one that spoke of years of unspoken comfort, of a bond forged in danger and steadied by affection. "You scare me all the time," Ron whispered, "and I still manage." Harry's breath hitched, but before he could reply, the chamber groaned violently overhead. Cracks raced across the ceiling like lightning. Chunks of stone tumbled to the ground. Torches sputtered. The ancient pillars flickered with dying runes. The orb. Harry whipped around. The artifact floated several feet above its altar, spinning erratically. What had once been a perfect sphere now shimmered with fractures of raw light. Threads of magic snapped and lashed outward, like ropes pulled too tightly. Ron staggered to his feet beside Harry. "It's unstable. The blast. It must have damaged it." Harry shook his head. No, the collision wasn't just magic meeting magic. It was three forces clashing, the artifact, the figure, and us. Ron's voice was tight. "So, it's tearing itself apart." Harry's stomach twisted. "Or tearing the hall apart." Before either could move, icy laughter echoed from the shadows. The cloaked figures stood near the far wall, staggering but far from defeated. Their robes were scorched, the hood half torn away, revealing pale skin and eyes that burned with unnatural silver light. "You fools," the figure hissed. "You think your bond is enough to harness what the ancients forged? You think mere affection can shape the weaving?" Ron aimed his wand instantly. "Affection? Try something stronger," the figure snarled. "You awakened what you cannot control, and now the artifact must be bound properly, through dominance, not devotion." Harry felt the air tighten. The figure drew in the raw magic leaking from the orb, threads of light twisting around their body like serpents. Their forms shimmered, flickering between solid and ethereal. Ron stepped instinctively in front of Harry. "Whatever you're planning, don't." The figure raised their hands. The orb shrieked. A piercing sound filled the chamber, cracking the air like a magical scream. The very walls shook in response. The artifact flared violently, sending out pulses that knocked auras to the ground and shattered the remaining pillars. Harry staggered, clutching Ron's arm. "They're trying to force control. They're binding themselves to it." The figure's voice layered with power, deep, echoing, ancient. Through me, the weaving will rebirth itself. Unity, forged in command, not choice. No, Harry snapped. He stepped forward beside Ron, wand raised, magic surging at his fingertips. Ron didn't hesitate. He moved with him as naturally as drawing breath. Their shoulders brushed, their magic aligned. Harry whispered, "Together?" Ron nodded. "Always." Magic leapt between them, gold to blue, blue to gold, forming a shared current that hummed like a living heartbeat. The warmth of Ron's presence filled Harry with strength, with clarity, with the truth of everything they had carried for years. The figure flung a blast of pale fire toward them. Harry and Ron cast as one. Their shield wasn't a wall. It wasn't a dome. It was a pulse, a wave of magic rippling outward from the bond between them. The blast shattered against it like water against stone. The figure staggered. "Impossible!" Ron tightened his grip on Harry's arm. "Let's show them what a real bond looks like." Harry felt emotions surge through him, raw, fierce, steady. He lifted his wand, voice clear as magic thrummed through his chest. "Conjungo Lumina!" Their joined spell burst from their wands like twin stars merging into one. The blast struck the orb first, not breaking it, but stabilizing its wild rotation. Runes flashed across its surface, recognizing, accepting, responding. The spell then surged toward the figure. They tried to shield. It wasn't enough. The wave of bonded magic threw them backward, slamming them into the far wall with a force that extinguished their silver glow. Their body collapsed to the floor, the shadows retreating as though disowning them. The chamber fell eerily silent, except for the labored hum of the orb. Harry exhaled shakily. "Ron, you did it." Ron snorted weakly. "We did it. Pretty sure you took most of that chant." But before Harry could smile, the orb pulsed once more. This pulse was not frantic, not broken, not hostile. It was gentle, a soft sigh of magic that drifted over them like warm air, humming in time with their bond. Runes along the chamber walls flickered, forming new patterns, spirals resembling intertwined threads. The orb dimmed until it was a soft, glowing crystal once more. The danger had passed. Ron let his wand lower, breath heaving. "Is it over?" Harry nodded slowly. "I think so. It's not unstable anymore. It's listening." Ron tilted his head. "Listening to what?" "To us." Ron's eyes softened. "Then what do we do with it?" Harry felt the answer before he knew it. He took Ron's hand, firm, warm, familiar, and stepped toward the orb. Its glow brightened, pulsing in quiet recognition. Harry whispered, "The artifact amplifies bonds, strengthens them, but it isn't meant to control. It's meant to honor." Ron nodded. "Then we make sure that's what it does." Together, they placed their free hands gently on the orb. Light curled around their fingers, warm as breath, soft as dawn. The artifact glowed, not with power, but with peace, and the ancient halls settled around them, no longer trembling, no longer collapsing. The weaving had awakened at last. Not through dominance, not through fear, but through the undeniable truth of the bond they finally chose to claim. The orb glowed beneath their palms, soft, steady, warm, not with the violent, untamed force that had nearly torn the hall apart, but with a deep and ancient calm. Its light pulsed in gentle harmony with the beat of their joined hands, as though the artifact itself were breathing, settling, coming to rest after centuries without purpose. Harry felt the warmth seep through his skin, spreading through his chest like a slow sunrise. The tension of the battle eased from his limbs, replaced by that quiet certainty he recognized only when Ron stood close. Ron exhaled beside him, shoulders lowering. "Feels different now. Peaceful." Harry nodded, voice hushed. "Because it doesn't need to bind anything. It recognizes the bond that's already here." Ron's fingers brushed his. Just a light touch, but one that resonated through the orb as if it, too, acknowledged the meaning behind it. The orb pulsed again, gentle, approving. Then the runes carved into the walls began shifting, rearranging themselves into new patterns. They formed spirals that curved inward like a great wheel of magic, each line glowing with faint golden light. The ancient pillars hummed softly, vibrating like the strings of a massive instrument tuned by the magic of ages. A wind whispered through the chamber, warm despite the cold stone. Dust motes rose and spun in the golden glow. Ron looked around, brow furrowing. "What's happening now?" "The weaving is resetting," Harry said quietly. "It's stabilizing, healing." The hall responded to the artifact's awakening. Runes that had dimmed centuries ago glowed anew. Sections of cracked stone knit themselves back together. Magic that had once been wild and feral flowed into calm, organized patterns. The echoing hum of the chamber rounded into a soft resonance, like a distant choir humming a single note in perfect harmony. For the first time since entering the mountains, the air felt safe. Harry let out a slow breath. "We did it!" Ron gave a small, crooked smile. "We usually do." When the last rune completed its cycle, the orb floated upward from their hands, hovering at eye level. It spun once, slow, deliberate, and a thin, ribbon-like line of light unwound from its surface. The ribbon drifted toward Harry first, touching his chest like a whisper. Then it curled toward Ron, pressing lightly above his heart. The warmth was brief but profound, leaving a shiver of energy that felt both grounding and strangely intimate. Ron swallowed. "What was that?" "A recognition mark," Harry murmured. "The artifact acknowledging us, and the magic we brought to awaken it." Ron blinked. "Like a signature?" Harry smiled. "Something like that." The ribbon retracted into the orb, and the crystal dimmed until it shone only faintly, its power resting, dormant now that it had completed its purpose. The auras approached cautiously from behind the pillars where they'd taken shelter. Their faces were pale with awe. Most had never witnessed magic this old, this vast, this alive. One stepped forward. "Commander, what do we do with it now?" Harry turned, steady once more. "We secure it. The hall must be sealed. Only the Ministry should have access to this place until we understand the artifact fully." Ron added, "And until we're absolutely sure no one else tries to use it." Harry nodded. "We'll transport the orb under maximum protection. It can't fall into the wrong hands again." The auras nodded, comforted by the authority in his voice. But even as he spoke, Harry felt the orb watching him and Ron with quiet awareness, as though their bond had become part of its memory. They prepared the sealing spells, weaving protective wards into the archway above. Ron anchored the runes, while Harry strengthened the barriers that would collapse the entrance behind them, one that could be reopened only with their combined magic. The ancient protections hummed, aligning themselves with their spellwork. When all was ready, Harry cast one final look across the great chamber. The pillars stood proud once more. The runes glowed softly, and at the center, the orb floated like a quiet moon, resting in the cradle of history. Ron stepped beside him. Hard to believe something like this was hidden under a mountain for thousands of years. Harry nodded. Magic has longer memories than we do. It waits until the world is ready. Ron gave him a sidelong glance. Or until the right wizards come along. Harry's heart tightened, not with fear, but with a warmth so steady it grounded him where he stood. Maybe both? Ron grinned, but there was something shy beneath it. Let's get this thing out of here before another ancient spirit decides it wants to lecture us. Harry laughed quietly. Agreed. They moved to the archway where the others waited. Once everyone was through, Harry and Ron raised their wands together. Their spells intertwined, gold and blue, forming a luminous seal that spread through the tunnel, locking every rune, every pillar, every inch of the hall behind a fortress of magic. When the seal solidified, the tunnel closed with a deep, resonant thrum. Snow greeted them again as they stepped out beneath the open sky. The mountain wind felt lighter now, freer, as though relieved of the burden it had carried for centuries. Ron looked down at the orb, now resting in a protective casing of enchanted glass. Its glow was faint, gentle, almost grateful. "Where do we go from here?" Ron asked. Harry lifted his gaze to the horizon, where the storm clouds had parted, revealing streaks of pink and gold. Back to the ministry, then home. Ron's brow lifted. Home? Harry hesitated, then met Ron's eyes. Wherever you are. Ron froze, only for a moment, only long enough for the truth of it to strike him. Then he stepped closer, hand brushing Harry's again, warm through the cold. Then let's go home, Ron whispered. Harry nodded, breath catching in the crisp air. Side by side, they began the long descent down the mountain, the ancient artifact secured between them, and the bond they had spent a lifetime avoiding, finally acknowledged by the magic of ages. The sun rose higher, gilding the peaks with light. And for the first time in years, Harry felt the future open before him. Uncertain, yes, but bright. The return to London felt strangely unreal after the vast, echoing silence of the mountains. The ministry's high-arched atrium blazed with warm light and the murmur of everyday magic, fluttering memos, bustling fireplaces, the rustle of cloaks. It should have felt comforting, safe, familiar. But Harry felt the weight of the orb, now stilled and quiet inside its enchanted casing, like a pulse beneath his palm. Not dangerous, not volatile, simply present. A reminder of what they had awakened and what it had revealed. Ron walked close beside him, their shoulders nearly brushing. His expression held the same quiet awe that had lingered since they left the hall, as though the world had shifted in some small but irreversible way. Auras hurried to greet them, voices overlapping. "Commander! Sir, you're back!" Is that the artifact? Are you hurt? Do you need medical? Harry raised a calm hand. We're fine. We've secured the source of the disturbances. Eyes widened, shoulders relaxed with relief. Soon enough, the orb was whisked away to the secure magical vaults beneath level 2, and the ministry hummed with controlled excitement as teams hurried to process reports, evaluate the wards, and notify the Wizengamot. But Harry and Ron, they slipped away from the noise, climbing the familiar staircase to the rooftop garden that overlooked the Thames. Few visited it at this hour. The air was cool but gentle, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. London sprawled beneath them, alive, bright, unmistakably home. Ron exhaled, resting his elbows on the stone railing. Hard to believe a few days ago we were just living our ordinary lives. Harry snorted softly. You call my life ordinary? Ron gave a lopsided grin. Fair, but you know what I mean. Harry leaned beside him, watching a charm-enhanced flock of paper cranes wheel through the sky above the river. We never really get to be ordinary, do we? He murmured. Ron was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, softly but firmly, Maybe we don't need ordinary. Harry turned. Ron's gaze was steady, blue eyes bright in the afternoon light. The wind tugged at his hair, making him look both entirely familiar and impossibly new. You kept us alive, Ron said. Through the hall, the figure, the magic tearing itself apart. You always do that. And I... Ron, Harry began. No. Ron shook his head, stepping closer. Let me finish for once. Harry's breath caught. Ron continued, voice low and earnest. I spent years thinking the best thing I could do for you was stay out of your way. Let you carry on with saving the world and leading the auras and being the hero everyone expects. Harry stared, shock flickering through him. Ron, you were never in my way. Ron's laugh was soft, almost bitter. I know that now, but for a long time, everything changed so fast after the war. You threw yourself into aura work. I threw myself into the shop. And somewhere in between, I convinced myself that if I stepped back, you'd be better off. Harry's heart squeezed painfully. But I never wanted distance. Ron met his gaze, something like regret stirring in his expression. I didn't either, but I was scared and stupid. Mostly stupid. A quiet smile tugged at Harry's lips. A bit. Ron laughed under his breath. The warmth of it washed through Harry with the same clarity he'd felt in the hall, when the artifact had recognized their bond, amplified it, mirrored it. Ron grew serious again. Everything that happened out there, the shards, the weaving, that figure, it all made something very obvious. His fingers brushed Harry's hand, tentative but certain. I don't want to keep pretending I don't know what I want. Harry's throat tightened. Then tell me. Ron stepped closer still. So long as you want it too, he said quietly. I want us. Harry hadn't known how much he needed those words until they finally settled over him. Warm, solid, right. He didn't speak at first. Instead, he reached up, cupping Ron's cheek gently. Ron leaned into the touch like it was the most natural thing in the world. Harry whispered, Of course, I want us. Ron closed his eyes briefly, as if steadying himself, then opened them again. Brighter, unguarded, filled with something that made Harry's chest ache with relief and joy. Good, Ron whispered back, voice slightly rough. Because the ancient magic of the British Isles already seems to approve. Harry laughed, a genuine, unrestrained sound that drifted across the rooftop. He leaned his forehead against Ron's, letting the closeness settle like a balm over a wound long left untended. Ron rested his hands lightly on Harry's waist. So, what happens now? Harry smiled. Now, we breathe, we rest, we go home. And after that? Ron murmured. Harry pulled back enough to meet his gaze properly. After that, whatever future we want to build, together. Ron's answering smile was brighter than any spell. I like that plan. They returned home that evening, not separately, not with a polite wave and an awkward promise to meet tomorrow, but together, walking side by side through the quiet streets. The glow of lampposts warmed the cobblestones, their light reflecting off the river as it whispered past. Ron held Harry's hand, thumb brushing occasionally across Harry's knuckles, each touch grounding him in a way magic never could. Harry found himself smiling, softly, constantly, helplessly. In the days that followed, the Ministry examined the artifact under the strictest protections. It remained peaceful, responsive only to Harry and Ron, its power now dormant and stable. The disturbances across Britain faded entirely. The shards scattered through the Highlands no longer hummed with dangerous energy, but rested like ancient stones, finally allowed to sleep. The cloaked figure, stripped of the artifact's influence, remained in custody, fragile, quiet, their silver glow extinguished. They spoke little, but one thing became clear. They had not been driven by malice, but by misguided desperation to resurrect a unity long lost. Their path had been wrong, but their fear of a fractured world had not been entirely unfounded. But that, Harry decided, could wait for another day. For once, the world did not demand immediate answers. For once, the world was quiet. Harry sat on his sofa days later, Ron's head resting comfortably on his shoulder. A soft fire crackled in the hearth. The flat smelled faintly of tea and the cinnamon biscuits Ron had burned, twice, before finally getting them right. Ron spoke without opening his eyes. "Think the orb still hears us?" Harry chuckled. "Probably. It has good taste." Ron nudged him sleepily. "Cheeky." Harry tilted his head, watching the firelight dance across Ron's freckles. "You know," he murmured, "the weaving never wanted to bind anyone. It just wanted to recognize true connection." Ron cracked one eye open, and it did. Harry nodded, warmth filling him. "It did." Ron shifted, curling closer. "Then let's make sure it was right." Harry's heart swelled. He wrapped an arm around Ron, holding him close. Outside, London hummed with ordinary magic. Peaceful. Whole. Inside, Harry finally felt something he hadn't felt in years. A future unfolding not from destiny or war or duty, but from choice, from love, from the bond he and Ron had carried since childhood, now fully, finally embraced. And though ancient artifacts might slumber and the world might change again, one truth remained certain. Whatever came next, they would meet it side by side, not as brothers of the wand, but as partners of the heart.